In this video, we're going to have the goal of being able to say that we can convert a fraction to a decimal without using a calculator. So before we go into how to convert this into a decimal, the first thing I'm going to want to do is talk about what each part of this fraction represents. So in the fraction 3/4, we've talked about this being a part of a number over the whole of a number. So maybe we can say 3 people out of 4 have red hats. But I want you to also think of this as a dividend over a divisor. Now, what a dividend is, it's the number that's being split up. So I'm splitting up a 3 into equal pieces, and I'm doing that by the divisor of 4. So 4 is the number that is actually doing the splitting. So in order to have this make a little bit more sense, we're going to go through an example that kind of shows exactly what's going on with the dividend and the divisor. So in this example, we have 3/4. And so the first thing I'm going to want to do is set up my division problem. Now I have to remember that my dividend goes on the inside of my division house. Some of you guys say that, or division bracket, whatever you might say. And my divisor goes on the outside. So top on the inside, bottom on the outside. And what I like to do, you don't necessarily have to do this. This is a nice little trick if you get stuck on some of the inside problems, is I want to find the multiples of my divisor up to 10. So I'm going to write these over here. Again, this is optional, but it does kind of help when you get into more complex problems. So I'm going to write this down. 4 times 1 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 3 is 12, 16, 20, 24, 28, 32, 36, and 40. So I have all my multiples of 10 listed right here on the side. You're going to see why I did this in just a moment. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to include some decimals and zeros. And before I include these, I'm going to show you why we're doing this right now, just to save you a little bit of time. So I know that 4 is not going to be able to evenly go into 3. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a decimal and a 0 here, which doesn't change the value of 3. This is still 3.0. 3.0 and 3 are the same thing. And if I continue adding more zeros, it doesn't change, and I don't have to worry about having any trailing zeros that I'll need later. I just make them now. So now I'm going to start dividing. So I know that 4 can't go into 3, so I'm going to put a 0 up here and include my decimal up here. 4 can go into 30, and maybe if I'm having a hard time remembering how many times it can go into 30, I can refer to my chart. So 4 times 1 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 3 is 12, times 4 is 16, times 5 is 20, times 6 is 24, times 7 is 28, which is pretty close. And if I go up one more to 4 times 8, I get 32. So that's a little bit too big, so I'm going to go back down to 7. So I know that 4 times 7 is going to give me 28. So I'm going to write my multiple right here. So 4 times 7 gives me 28. I'm going to use a little bit of subtraction right here. 30 minus 28 is 2. I don't want to have a remainder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring down a 0. And I need to see how many times 4 can go into 20. Now, off the top of my head, I know this is 5. 4 times 20 is 5. I can just take away 0. But if I needed to, I could refer to this chart. 4 times 1, times 2, times 3, times 4, times 5. Boom, right here. That's 4 times 20. I'm sorry, 4 times 5 is 20. So I know now that 3/4 is equal to 0.75. In our next example, we have 3/5. So I'm going to start my problem off by putting my dividend inside of the division house and my divisor on the outside. And this is a pretty easy problem. I don't know if you'll have to do the multiples of 10 here, but let's just do them just in case. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, and 50. So I'm going to add a decimal and some zeros on the outside, just to be safe so I know that I don't have to borrow zeros later. And now I can start dividing. 5 cannot go into 3, so I'm going to include a 0. Bring up my decimal point. 5 can go into 30. If I check my chart, I find out it can go in there exactly 6 times. 30 minus 30 gives me 0. So I know that 3/5 is equal to 6/10. Now our last example is a little bit more complex, so we're definitely going to want to do the multiples here. So I'm going to have 7/8. I'm going to include my multiples on the side, so 8, 16, 24, 32, 40, 48, 56, 64, 72, and 80. So I have all my multiples of 8 over here. And I'm going to include some decimals and some zeros, so 0.7000. 8 cannot go into 7, so I'm going to include a 0 up here in my decimal. 8 can go into 70, and it can do this only 8 times. So I'm going to put in 8 out here, because 8 times 8 is 64. I do a little bit of subtraction. I get a remainder of 6. I bring down a 0. 8 can go into 60. Let's check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Really 6 times before. Let me try that one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm sorry, this should only be 7 times. So 7 times. So 8 times 7 is 56. And I get a remainder, once I do a little bit of borrowing, I just get a remainder of 4. I drop down my final 0. And 8 can go into 40 exactly 5 times. I no longer have a remainder, so we're all done with our other trailing decimals and our remainders. So I know that 7/8 is equal to 875 thousandths. I hope you reached your goal of being able to convert fractions to decimals without using a calculator.